sign language interpreter in the office, and an employer doesn't necessarily have to provide accommodation if doing so could cause undue hardship, which that means that it's too expensive or too difficult to provide. So not everybody with a medical condition can be protected by the law. In order to be protected, a person must be qualified for the job and have a disability as defined by the law. So one of those ways is a person may be disabled if he or she has a physical or mental condition that substantially limits major life activity, meaning walking, talking, seeing, or hearing. Another way is if they have a history of disability. An example for that would be if someone has cancer that is in remission, you can't discriminate them because of that. And then lastly, if they have a physical or mental impairment that is not minor and will last longer than 6 months, meaning if you break your wrist, you can't be under the disability discrimination. So in 1963, the Equal Pay Act was put into law, and that required that men and women in the same workplace be given pay for equal work. However, though, the jobs do not have to be identical, but they must be substantially equal. And this means that you have to go by job content, not the job title. So more specifically, they have an equal skill, equal effort, and equal responsibility under similar work conditions in the same establishment. And it's not just limited to just a salary. All forms of pay are covered, including stock options, overtime pay, and vacation and holiday pay, and even vacation and holiday time. If there is an inequality of wages, however, though, between men and women, the employers cannot reduce one of the wages of either sex to equalize their pay. That is illegal against the law. So genetic information discrimination. Now, the definition of genetic information, it covers 3 categories: information about an individual's genetic tests, or information about the genetic test of a family member of that employee, or even the more popular one, a family medical history. Now, in 2009, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act went into effect and into law. This protects individuals against discrimination on the basis of genetic information. So an example for that is that my family has a history of heart disease, and in the future, if I was up for a promotion and I was qualified, but it was a stressful job, I couldn't be discriminated against because my family has a history of heart disease. And the confidentiality of genetic information, this is when an employer must keep genetic information about applicants and employee confidential. If the genetic information is in writing, they have to keep it separate from public employee information. And there are some circumstances where an employer may disclose genetic information, and an example of that would be in response to a court order or a request from that employee or a family member of that employee. Now, employment discrimination is seen every day in workplaces around the country. Last year, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission recorded over 89,000 workplace discrimination charges in last year alone. And the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission is responsible for enforcing these laws that make it illegal to discriminate in the workplace. However, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission mainly sees discrimination after it occurs. In human resources, it is very important that a manager understands the laws that involve issues such as harassment and discrimination. It is also very important in their duty that the Human Resources Department teaches this information to employees to avoid any incidents involving harassment, discrimination, or breaking any of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission laws. And that is our presentation on human resources law.